Chris, who were looking to sprawl out, maybe it's teensy tiny.
Yeah, you can hear me now. There you go. Now my mic works. That's why it's always good to double check the microphone. One sec though. This is going to pick up a lot of background noise. Let me fix this. I was fiddling with my setup earlier, and yeah, I forgot to put it back to how I had it. Let's see. So properties, microphone, default. Am I gonna have to restart my stream to fix this? That stinks. Actually, I'll bet I can. Hold on, one sec. I bet I can add new mic. There we go. Is that any better? There we go. I use when I'm streaming, I use this app called NVIDIA Broadcast, and it does noise removal on my mic, which I think sounds better than how it sounds when it's not on there. Otherwise, my mic just picks up all kinds of background noise. Let me turn my music down too. I know. I wasn't prepared today. I was not prepared at all. There we go. Okay, let me know if the audio sounds jank or something, or if you can't hear the music. I've got the music turned down quite a bit for myself, but I try to keep it kind of low and in the background, but I don't want it to overpower my voice. Okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I was gonna work on the alt text generator some more, but I thought maybe we take a break for a day from that. That's what we worked on the last couple of days. Uh, and maybe we do a chore or two, and maybe I tell a story or two, and maybe that's more interesting for people. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a blog. Let's see, blog.stephenfreeborn.com. I built this blog late last year, and I built it after seeing, let's see, Dan. It's called overreacted.io, I think. Yeah. So I built it after seeing this guy's blog. His name's Dan Abramov. Abramov. He used to be on the React core team, and now I think he works for Blue Sky. Yeah, he works for Blue Sky now. But I saw his blog and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And if you look at the source code for it, where is it? Yeah, if you look at the source code on his GitHub, it's actually really neat and it's super simple. Like the way he approached it. I love how it just uses markdown files, served as like a static, as a static site. And so I built this blog because I was like, man, I really like the style of that. I like the simplicity of it. I like it's basically all kind of like a Git based, dev based workflow for writing and publishing blogs. But I wanted to rebuild it in something different. He used React and I wanted to use Blazor. So I rebuilt it for myself using Blazor. And it's currently on a, not an old version, but it's currently on the how do you put this? It's on the oldest version of .NET. .NET 8 is what it's on. And I want to upgrade it to .NET 9 because .NET 9 just came out this past fall. And so that's what I thought we could do today. And upgrading .NET projects is really easy. Basically, all we need to do is we just need to go into each of our CS projects and just change the target framework. We'll rebuild the project. Hopefully everything builds. If everything builds great, then we can also do some some package updates, because I'm sure some of these packages can be upgraded to a newer version. So we can do some package upgrades, and then we'll also do the same thing for the test project. I have some tests that I use, very simple end-to-end tests using Playwright. So we can upgrade my test project too, because it's targeting .NET 8 and it's got some older packages in here. So that's what we're gonna do first. It should be pretty simple. The famous last words there, but that's what we're gonna try to do right now. We're gonna try to upgrade my blog. So let's go software projects. My dog is bothering me again. He gets up every time I start streaming. He gets up on this corner of my couch. There's a couch right here to my left. He gets up on this corner of this couch and he starts licking himself, and it just drives me nuts. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll also in addition to upgrading the blog, we'll also need to upgrade my GitHub actions, and I think that's it. I don't think I do have a Docker file, so I probably need to update the Docker file too. Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a look at each of these things. Yeah, no one cares. Work harder. You like that? No one cares. Work harder. That's my kind of motivation. My wife probably wouldn't find that very motivating, but I find it motivating. Okay, let's start with the blog. So the first thing we need to do is we just need to go to the csproj file. And all we're going to do here is we're just going and change this from .NET 8 to .NET 9. Write that back out. We'll do the same thing with my test project. This is .NET 9. And then let's create a new tab in PowerShell. And this is really, I mean, that's really the big, I mean, what's crazy is like, that's really, for most parts, if you have a relatively simple project, that's going to be like the, .NET build. Do I have the solution here? Right. .NET build. And hopefully everything still works. At least it still builds. Yeah, and for the most part, that's like that's upgrading to the latest version of .NET. One thing, okay, so that takes care of the projects. But what I want to do is I also want to go through and update the NuGet packages, and I think there isn't a great way to do this. There isn't a great, I don't know of a great way to do this. The command line, you just have to basically install the package. But the way I usually do this is I usually open VS Code. And I know I've been trying to use NeoVim, but VS Code has an extension for NuGet that's pretty nice. It's basically a GUI, very similar to like Visual Studio has. But it allows you to see the packages that are available to you, and then you can kind of upgrade things as you would like. So what we can click here is right now that it doesn't have any version info, but if I click load package versions, it'll tell me basically if there are updates available. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that while I'm here too. So I'm going to update all my packages. And now they're updated. Now we can close out of Visual Studio. And all that did, I mean, that's a really nice GUI to do it, but all it did was, if we open up LazyGit, I mean, it's nothing like special. All it did was it just changed the version numbers in the csproj, right? So that was what it changed. There's no like magic happening behind the scenes. It's just changing versions. You could do this manually, right? You could do that manually. You could go to NuGet, see what the latest is for the framework that you're targeting. And now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and build it again. We'll just make sure it still builds and compiles. And I have a suite of tests too. So once we get this built and compiled, then we'll run my tests and make sure the tests pass. Cool. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and run my tests. So my tests, again, my tests aren't anything like crazy complex. So you can see there's 35 of them, and they're all just basically, most of them are end-to-end tests using Playwright. I think there's a few maybe unit tests, maybe integration tests, but oh, I have fluent assertions in here. Okay, all my tests pass. There's my report. Why am I seeing that? Oh, because this opened up in Chrome. I don't really use Chrome anymore. Okay, so this is my HTML report. Looks good. Probably have higher coverage, but it's good enough for what we're doing here. Oh, see, okay, this. So if you're not aware, Fluent Assertions changed their license recently. And so if you're using the newest version, which I think I upgraded to, you basically have to pay. You basically have to pay a license if it's for commercial use. Which to me it seems like always that seems to me personally. I'm not a lawyer, but that always seems like kind of like a gray area. Like what is commercial use? I don't know. So in those type of scenarios, I basically always hedge and like, okay, I'm not going to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my CS Proj. I don't know why I say it like that. CS Proj. I'm going to go back into my CS Proj and I'm just going to downgrade this to 7.1. So 7.1 and older are free. You don't have to worry about it. The license is going to remain the way it is. It's just if you want to go to the newer version 8 and up. So for this project, I'll just keep Fluent Assertions. Maybe at some point I replace it. I haven't really found a good. I've heard some people talk about like Shouldly. Shouldly is a good alternative. There's also a completely new unit test framework called TUnit that's out. That might be interesting to try, but I'm not at this moment in time. We're just worried about upgrading the blog. So we'll write that out. Put all. Oh, I also need to upgrade my. I made some changes to my NeoVim config. Need to pull down those changes. Okay, so we can. Yeah. All right. Quit all. And then .NET test again, and this time we shouldn't get that warning about the license. If this works, then if the test passed, then this is the blog upgraded. I mean, that's basically. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but like that's the effort that you have to put in to upgrade from one .NET version to another. Granted, I understand this is a simple project. It's probably more complicated, especially if you. To me, upgrading seems much more complicated the bigger the jump is from the version of .NET or the version of .NET framework that you're on and a newer version you want to go to, right? So migrating from .NET framework 4.7 whatever to .NET 9 would probably be a lot of lift. But like if you just stay up with it every year, going from .NET 7 to .NET 8 to .NET 9, those incremental jumps seem very convenient and easy to execute. Okay, so we've upgraded the blog. However, we need to take care of my Docker file and my GitHub Actions because those all still are using an older version of .NET. So let's go take a look at the Docker file. I think I just need to change this to be 9 instead of 8. And this to be 9 instead of 8. Should be able to leave the rest of this alone. Now we'll go to my actions folder. Here, no, over here. So I have one for pull requests. And I just need to change the .NET version. 9. And I need to change the pass because these are now going to say .NET 9. .NET 9. These are purely, and these are the only reason for updating these is because these, so after when you're using Playwright in .NET, the first time you build your test project, it generates this PowerShell script and then you use that PowerScript to actually install the Playwright dependencies, because Playwright has some binary dependencies, basically the browsers that it uses to run your tests. You have to install those. So I have to specify the path to them in my workflow to make sure that I install those dependencies before I actually try to run the tests. Yeah, okay, so we got that, that works, cool. And now we'll do the other one, which is, that was pull request, now we need to update deploy. Or do we? I guess we don't probably need to, because all my deploy script does is basically it builds the Docker image, it tags it, pushes it to Docker Hub, and then it logs into my server, pulls down that same Docker image, and then runs the Docker image. I have a deploy script that basically does like a blue-green deployment. So I think that's gonna work, right? Famous last words. I always say I think that's everything. Let's do a quick search. Like, let's just grep real quick. Net 8 or just 8.0. Yeah. Okay. I think we've covered all the places where it's at. So let's go ahead and write all this out. And I like to use GitHub CLI for a lot of my workflow. So now we're just gonna say, oh, we need to start a new branch too, don't we? Git checkout the Stephen Freeborn, because so many other people work on this with me. Stephen Freeborn feature, or maybe chore. Let's call it chore. Upgrade. I don't know, it's a feature. I mean, there's stuff to be gained from it. Grade. Actually, hold on, real quick before we do that. Oh, we can check that. We can get a branch. Git checkout B. To net. That up. Okay, before I do that, I just want to make sure I run source, project, source, log. I just want to make. I mean, you should after you make changes, you should run your app and make sure at least functions at the bare minimum. Okay, and then let's load a post. Looks good. Okay, yeah. So it looks like everything's working okay. Lazy Git. I don't know if you guys, I got turned on to this application called Lazy Git from the same guy that I watched the NeoVim courses of, Typecraft. And it's pretty cool. So we're just gonna commit this. Commit for use.net 9 for workflow. Let's see. Then we could probably we can draw these together. The feature upgrade to net 9 and upgrade that. And then we should be able to tab here and then shift push. That pushes to our remote. Okay. Then get status. It's clean. Okay, so now we'll open up a new PR. So GHPR create feature upgrade to .NET 9. And I have an issue for this. I have an issue, GH issue list. Number 20, yeah, so this closes. And you may not be familiar with it, but by referencing, by referencing this number here in my pull request body, it will link my pull request to that issue that I have open. And then when the pull request gets merged, it'll actually close that issue automatically. It's a really nice workflow that GitHub has. And now GHPR checks --watch. And now we'll just let my workflow run. So hopefully all the changes I made, it should run. It should test, and yeah, it'll be good. I'm always so impressed with the work that goes in by the .NET team to make this process. Because I've done this now, I don't know, I've done this a handful of times over a variety of applications, APIs, console apps, just upgrading incrementally from like, granted, I didn't go through the pain of going from like a framework app to a core app, or from like .NET Core 2 to Core 3. From what I understand, based on listening to people, there was some painful years in there when upgrading was really difficult. But basically, most of the stuff I've built and worked on has been like .NET 6 and newer, and doing upgrades from across like 6, 7, 8, 9 has been painless for me. And I know I'm not a representative sample, but I'm always impressed by the ease of. I mean, if you've used Next.js, going from 13 to 14 was painful, and they just released 15, and I don't know what the upgrade path looks like from that, but that's all to say that if you have gone through upgrades of things that were painful or were difficult, it's just you come to appreciate when that isn't the case for something else. I feel like this check is taking too long. What do you think? Did I miss something? I may have missed something. Who knows? I should probably keep a list of what I did. I should probably update that issue with like what I did. There we go. It passed. Okay. Yeah, let's go in here and like for my own posterity, let's update this issue with what I did. Oh, thank you, former me. So I had already thought of that. So I upgraded the projects, I upgraded the Docker file, and I upgraded my workflows. So now we should be able to say dhpr merge, create a merge commit, delete the branch. Go. Now we wait. Well, I guess we don't have to wait. We can actually watch this thing deploy. Like I said, my deploy process is very simple. It builds and pushes to my Docker hub, and I use really simple versioning. I don't even version the blog project like the CS proj. I just do really simple like date, time versioning of the image. Because it's super simplistic, but it works for what I'm doing. And then once it builds the image, pushes that up to Docker Hub, I just log into my server. I drop down into the server, into a shell, pull that image down and run it, and stop the old image that is running on the server. I have a whole blog post too of how I built this. If you actually go to my blog, I'll let this deploy first. But if you go to my blog, I have a whole blog post on building the Markdown blog, like how I built it with Blazor, and then also how I set it up to deploy. There we go. We navigate over. It should be live. Nice. I need to add like a powered by, don't I? Wouldn't that be cool to have like a little powered by .NET, whatever? Let's add that as an issue. Add powered by .NET version. Because that would be kind of cool to see. It would be cool to be able to see what version of .NET the blog is running. Yeah, okay, so that's upgrading my blog from .NET 8 to .NET 9. Granted, my blog is relatively simple, but it kind of illustrates the process and how convenient and easy it is to actually do it. And then if you're curious more about the blog, just in general, like how it's built, how it's deployed, that sort of thing, I did write this post back in April. Oh, wow, I built this back in April? Wow. I built this not at the end of last year, but at the beginning, I guess. That talks to, man, time flies, but just basically talks through like the inspiration of where I built it, how I figured it out, using Blazor to do it, the different packages I used, the testing, and then the deployment parts in here too. And like how I'm doing the code snippet highlighting, that's part of it. Yeah, so if you're interested, you want to build something similar, there's kind of a how-to here, and then the repo is also linked in that blog post. So. All right, what's next? I think what I wanted to do next was I kind of wanted to tell a story. Yeah, I think that one of the things that so what am I trying to say here? As an outsider looking into tech, I always wondered how people learned how to do the things they do, or how do people acquire the skills that they have to work in technology, particularly more on the technical side, right? Like programming, networking, coding, DevOpsy ish things. Because I did not go to school for computer science. I didn't go to school for information technology or anything like that, or information management systems. None of those degrees. My degree is in biochemistry, so it was technical, and I've always considered myself a very technical person, but it wasn't in this particular domain. And so I kind of always wondered, you know, how did people acquire those skill sets? And so I thought it might be now, as somebody who's definitely not, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, and I wouldn't say that I've arrived, but as somebody who has those skill sets, I thought it might be interesting for you to know kind of how I went about acquiring those skills. In other words, this is sort of my how I learned to code video. And so I'll just tell you kind of how it started, the resources I used, and maybe what I would recommend if you're interested in learning how to code. So I guess really my journey of learning programming, learning coding goes back to I went to school at a university called Missouri Southern State University. It is in my hometown of Joplin, Missouri, and this is where I got my biochemistry degree from. It was a great university. It's a smaller university. It's primarily focused on teaching, but that's great if you're a student because you have a lot of one-on-one time or a lot of opportunity for one-on-one time with your professors. So if you're struggling on something or if you need more extra time, all your professors have office hours and you can walk in and have some one-on-one time. You don't have to work through a TA like you do at some of these larger universities. That being said, one of the things I did while I went to school here was I had to take some electives. And so I took computer programming 1 and computer programming 2 as electives my junior or senior year of college. I honestly don't know. I think it was my junior year. But I took computer programming 1, computer programming 2, and we learned how to write code in C# actually. And I bet, let me see if I can find some of my homework from back then. Let me see. I did a pretty good job of keeping. This may not be interesting to you, but I did a pretty good job of keeping all my old homework and projects and things from college, just because it was so much work, and you put so much time into it. Yeah, this is fall of 2014, so that would have been my senior year. Looks like I took computer programming, analytical chemistry, applied behaviorism, and organic. I was an organic chem TA. But I had so much fun. Let's see. Here's a while loop assignment. What was this? Yeah, here we go. So I had this. This must have been, yeah, CS 110. I think that's computer programming 1 or something like that. But I had so much fun doing this. I didn't even have a Windows machine, and at this time you couldn't do C# programming on Macs. I think I had a MacBook. I don't think you could do it. So I actually had to get my father-in-law had an old PC that he didn't want anymore, and he actually gave it to me, and that's what I used. And this was really the first time doing this class was the first time I really remember being kind of bit by an interest in technology, not interest in technology, but an interest in programming and coding. I remember staying up like way too late working on homework assignments, just because I was kind of like addicted to that little bit of dopamine when you figured a problem out. And I wish if I could go back and talk to myself back then, I wish I would have leaned into that more. I wish I would have leaned into that passion a little bit more. But I was where I was in life, where I was in school. It just didn't seem realistic or make sense to switch majors or change majors. Being a senior deep into a technical field already. So that was my first exposure with programming. That kind of is what put that bug in my brain of like, hey, I actually like doing that kind of stuff. Okay, so fast forward, that was 2014, 2015. I graduate school. I actually went and worked for 5, 6, 7 years in a completely unrelated field to technology or computer programming. But at some point, I think like 2019, I kind of got to this point where I realized I didn't like the work that I was doing, and I wanted to make a change at some point. And so I thought, what can that be? What's the other career that I want to do? And so that whole experience with computer programming 1 in college kind of came back, and I thought, I think I could do that. I think I could do that work. I think I would enjoy doing that for a living. And I was also seeing like people going to boot camps and getting into tech with like 3 months of training, and they were, they had like a work from home remote lifestyle. This was all before the pandemic, and I thought, man, I had just had my first couple kids, I had just had my kids, and I was like, man, that would be really awesome if I could find a job that gave me a lot of flexibility and allowed me to work from home and be around my family a lot. And so I went on Coursera, and I think I still have the link. Let me see if I still have the link. I went on Coursera, and I found this course. It was called Duke Learn to Programming, and I'm pretty sure it was this Programming Foundations with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And I did this course, and they have you do one of the things you do, and maybe it's later on here, but one of the things you do in this course. Oh no, it was definitely this. It was definitely Programming Foundations because I didn't do anything with Java. But one of the things you do in this course is you build like a green screen remover, which is really cool. But this was like in 2019. I completed this course, and then I just kind of stopped. I just didn't really keep pursuing it. There was a lot of stuff going on, and the pandemic happened. We had 2 little kids, and I was just focused on family and work, and I had kind of put this on the back burner, like, hey, I'll come back to this and think about making a career change or a job switch at some point. Fast forward another year or two, and I actually got an opportunity to make a career change, make a job change into the technology space, but it wasn't doing anything technical. It was as a support analyst, working on sort of a no-code piece of software. However, one of the cool things was that this no-code piece of software has a formula engine, and this formula engine's all based on JavaScript. Granted, it's not the most modern, up-to-date JavaScript, but it is JavaScript. And so I kind of got hooked on understanding this formula engine and being able to write kind of complex formulas in this piece of software. And that kind of reinvigorated my interest and desire to want to learn more about programming and coding. And so that's where I found, and so from there, that's where I found kind of, I think, who I would contribute the most with my ability to code, which is Free Code Camp. So if you're not familiar with Free Code Camp and you're in the kind of place of like, I want to learn how to code, this is just an unbelievable resource. So many people have benefited from this curriculum, and it is a real curriculum. I mean, it is the real deal. It's completely free. It's completely self-paced. Let me go ahead and sign in so you can see my progress here. I don't want to. Doing my best to be conscious of not to leak anything. Yeah, so you can see like I did a bunch of these. I did responsive web design. I also did their JavaScript algorithm data structure certification, but they recently released a new version of this, which is why I think it's not showing up as me having completed it. But I have a ton of these courses completed, right? So I have responsive web design, front-end development, data visualization, relational databases, back-end development, APIs. This was mostly done like Node and Express stuff. Quality assurance. I did some Python with some scientific computing and data analysis. And then they just recently, this was kind of, oh, there's my legacy certification. So there you go. They update these, right, which is pretty cool. Like they're trying to stay up to date with the latest information, and so they discontinue previous certs and release new certs, so you can kind of stay up to date on the latest information. But this is really when I got serious about it, and I just went hard from like, I wonder if my activity's on here, but I just went hard from like 2022 to like 2023. I just went hard on the Free Code Camp curriculum. I built all the projects, and I'm super proud of it. Like I still have these listed on my GitHub profile. You can see all the different projects I built. I recently moved a lot of these. I had a lot of these projects hosted on Heroku because that was free, and I recently moved a bunch of them over to Render. But yeah, you can see like some of my very first websites. Like you had to build a tribute page. I built a tribute page to this doctor named Sydney Farber, who did a lot of early work on treating cancers, particularly pediatric cancers. But yeah, and so like I think all the test suites still pass. So if let's see, tribute page. Yeah, all my tests still pass. Yeah, so this was, I mean, Free Code Camp was really the thing that got me to the point where I could look at a problem, where I could think of something I wanted to build and really build it. Now, from the C# perspective, now Free Code Camp, when I was doing it, didn't really go deep into the C# side of things. They do, like I said, they do now have a C# foundational certification. It's a partnership with Microsoft that you can do. The C# came in from a Pluralsight course. I think it was a Pluralsight course by a guy named Scott Allen. I think was his name. Scott Allen. Yeah, I can't remember the exact name of the course, but I'm pretty sure it was this individual who taught it. Allen C#. Yeah. So I took a couple. I think it was must have been some sort of introduction or some sort of getting started with C#, that I did, and that was kind of my first foray into C# development. And then a lot of the resources for learning C# then came from YouTube. There's a bunch of great content creators that teach C# on YouTube. You've got Nick Chappas, who's really good, really great. He's got kind of, his content tends to be much more smaller, condensed, kind of punchy. Learn a helpful piece of information relatively quickly, in a few minutes. There's another guy, Tim Corey. His content's kind of blurs the line between developer education and career advice, and he also has some free courses. He's got a Blazor course that I did that was, I can't remember exactly what the course was, but I know I did it with him. So yeah, Tim Corey, and then the .NET, just like the .NET ecosystem of content, .NET, they have a channel. And so that's kind of how, so YouTube was a lot of the ways that I picked up C# programming. But between Free Code Camp, some Pluralsight, some YouTube, I was able to kind of acquire, hey, I can build stuff on the front end. I can do JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and now I can do and I can do JavaScript on the back end on the server as well. That came from Free Code Camp. But then I was like, okay, I can also acquire I don't want to say a big boy language, but just a little bit more, I guess, grown up, I guess is the way I would describe it, but just a different language other than JavaScript for doing back end work, and that was C#. And also where I live in a town, I live near Kansas City, and Kansas City is very much a .NET town. It's obviously not the only language, but a lot of industry, a lot of companies here use .NET. And so it was a good reason to pick it up. And so between all these resources, I was able to cobble together the ability to write code. And obviously, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. And you never, in my opinion, I think it's a lie that developers are just these ingenious people who can just spill out lines and lines of code without ever having to look things up or to ever having to reference something. I just don't think, there's probably programmers and developers out there like that, and probably the deeper you get into your career and the more you do that kind of stuff, the more you become like that. But I don't think that's what's required up front, right, to learn. There's some like core conceptual basic knowledge, what's a loop, what's a variable, what's a reference, what's a value, what's stored on the heap, what's stored on the stack, some of these basic conceptual things. But then each language kind of has its own unique paradigm and approach to doing things. And so you just have to learn them and reference them and look them up when you need it. Okay, I've talked for quite a while, kind of telling my story of how I came to be able to to code. And so, having told that story now, I think I'd just like to kind of give some advice that I have after having gone on this journey. And I think the first advice is, when you're first starting out, find some structured resources. Go to Free Code Camp, follow their curriculum from start to finish. Buy a book, do the book from start to finish. There's actually a really great JavaScript book that's online called Eloquent JavaScript. This is a great resource. It's got some projects that you do. It's got examples at each end of each chapter that you can do. This would be a great resource. But find a resource that's structured, that's going to give you a little bit of that, what's the term, pedagogy. It's going to be a little bit more pedagogical, right? It's going to try to build on concepts and layers things on. I think that's what you need early on. You want to have somebody there holding your hand and guiding you. Now, at the same time, as you're following that guided and structured approach, you want to make sure you don't get stuck in tutorial hell, right? You want to, at the same time, be constantly thinking about how you can take what you're learning and apply it to your own problems, right? So you want to think about, what's something I could build, or what's something I could use with what I just learned that's outside of the context of the specific thing that they were using in the course or the book to teach that concept. Can I take that concept that I learned and can I apply it in some other area? The first time I did this was when I was very early on learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. My son, he was in kindergarten, I think, at the time, and he was doing these, what do they call them? Number bonds is what they call them. And he was using these pieces of paper, that they would send home, that basically had these drawings that looked like, what they look like? They looked like, if I can draw them for you. They basically looked like this. The bond, they had a number here, and then a number up top, like this. And so they were doing stuff like, 7 and 4, and then they'd have to fill in 3, right? So they were using this to practice addition and subtraction. And so I thought, man, I could build something that generates those for him to solve and has like varying levels of difficulty. And so that's where I came up with this repo. It's still on my GitHub. It's very simplistic, and I bet if I look back at the code, I would be ashamed of what I wrote. But I'm honestly super proud of this thing I built, because it solved a problem that nobody else had showed me how to solve. It was something that I purely thought up of myself. It was something I understood, and I applied it with these new skills that I had. And so I could give this to my son. I could have him open this on his iPad, and he could play this game and practice his number bonds. And he could change the difficulty level, and we put in a crazy difficulty level, right? Because he thought that was really funny. And we did different modes, right? So we put in different modes so he could practice addition and subtraction. And we added like sounds for when he got things right, it'll actually play a sound. Ding ding, right? If he gets one wrong, it would play a buzzer, right? And so it's a really simple project, but it's something I'm super proud of, because it was that first time I really showed myself that, hey, I do understand what I'm learning in this structured course, because I took those concepts, I took what I learned, and I applied it to this other thing. And so that would be my recommendation to you too, is as you're going through some sort of structured curriculum or structured course, and I would also highly recommend, don't pay, try to find a free resource. I mean, I would definitely vouch for Free Code Camp. But as you're doing that, also be thinking, what are things in my life, what are stuff that I have that I could solve with these new skills? And then as soon as you finish that structured course, that structured curriculum or book or anything, or that thing that you're following, what I would tell you then is to not go find another course. Don't find another book. If you're and again, I'm not trying to talk to you about how to get a job. I'm talking to you about how to learn to code. And so what I would say is after you get done with those courses, don't go pick up another one, or after you get done with the book, don't pick up another book. What you should do is stay within the languages you know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or maybe you picked up Rust. I don't know. Maybe you decided to go some crazy offbeat path. But then take that language that you know now, that you've been taught the basics of, and spend all your time building something that scratches your own itch, solves a problem for yourself. And don't be afraid to bite something off that's complex, right? That in the back of your mind, you know, I don't have all the skills that are necessary to build that, right? But I have enough to get started. Because what that's going to allow you to do is going to allow you to stay out of tutorial hell, solve a unique problem that's going to force you to kind of stretch and reach and apply yourself. But it's also going to give you the opportunity to say, oh, you know what? I don't actually know how to do a queue. I don't know how to build a queue, or I don't know how to run a background job. And then you can pause, right? You can pause your work on this project of yours, and you can go over to a course or to a book or to Google, and you can do some learning to figure out, hey, how does someone build a queue? How do you run a background job if you're using Node? Or how do you run a background job if you're using .NET? And once you've done some learning and built some POCs and small things, then you can come back to your project and again apply that same concept. And for me, that's really where the learning and the knowledge acquisition comes from, is you spend some time in a structured environment where somebody is sort of holding your hand, and then as soon as possible, you transfer that knowledge to another domain, to another unknown, where somebody isn't giving you explicit direction, where you have to take what you learn and actually apply it. Because if you spend all your time in a course or in a book, while that's great, what you'll quickly find is that the minute you leave those contexts, you suddenly realize, oh wait, do I know how to do that? I don't, like, you all of a sudden it reveals like, oh, I wasn't actually learning. I wasn't actually grabbing it. I was just doing kind of rote follow along instructions, which is what tutorial hell is, right? It's like, oh, I was pushing the buttons and I was clicking on the things and I was typing the commands, but I wasn't actually grasping it, which is why you should find a structured course and curriculum that's project based. But then as soon as possible, you should be trying to set up and build your own things and apply your own solutions. So that's my story of how I learned to code. And that's my advice if you find yourself also wanting to code. Again, Free Code Camp is probably where I'd send you. Start with web development, start with the basics, and then grow from there. All right, so that's my story time. So we upgraded the blog and we did story time. And I've been streaming for like right on an hour now. So I should probably be wrapping up for the afternoon. Nobody was in the chat today, again, unfortunately. I'm waiting for people to. I'm trying to be as regular as I can with my streaming time during the day, because I figure, well, if I stream on lunch, there's got to be other people who take lunch who might want to hang out over lunch and work on programming stuff. But yeah, I think tomorrow we'll go back to working on the alt text generator, because we're actually pretty far along on that thing from the API perspective. All we really need to do is we just need to make a live request over to Gemini and verify it. Then we need to add some stuff to our testing so that we can mock out our requests. Yeah. And then we'll probably be we need to probably add some rate limiting too, because I will host this on my server and it will be publicly accessible, and I'm not going to provide LLM. People are going to have to bring their own keys, but I probably don't want people like trying to generate, I don't know, something crazy like 10,000 alt images from my server to these LLM providers. So I probably need to rate limit it by like IP address. I don't know, limit it to like 1,000, 100. I don't know what's reasonable, 100 an hour, something like that. People probably aren't making 100 blue sky posts. But yeah, we can implement that too. .NET has a really nice. They actually recently have a really nice built-in rate limiting system now. You don't have to pull in any. I mean, you can still if you want to pull in a package to do rate limiting, but you don't have to anymore. What do you think? What about before we wrap up? I could probably go for a little bit longer today. What about we do some code? We could do. Have you ever heard of a site called iCodeThis? It's kind of a cool little site. Login. I've done one of these, but basically it's kind of more front end focused. But they give you these challenges that you can do every day, right? And so you basically try to build this card, is what you do. And I think you can use any framework I think you want, but you could probably just use vanilla HTML, vanilla CSS, vanilla JavaScript to do all this. They don't really. The functional part of this, they don't really do much with, like watch trailer by. But I set up a repo because I thought it might be fun to do one of these each day, or as often as you could. So I think I had set up a repo for this at some point. iCode. I could have sworn I had one. Maybe I deleted it. Oh no, there it is. Yeah, and I had set up like to do one. I had set up a bunch of different, like do it in React, do it in Vanilla JS or Vue. And I think I had just done one. Did that one. Actually, I don't know if I did that one. I'm pretty sure I did this one. Yeah, but I thought, yeah, maybe we do this. Although this is probably more than I have time for. Maybe we just add this to the list of things we do when we stream, right? We can work on projects, but I think it would be interesting for people if they're watching me stream to have something visual. Most of what I've been building has not been visual. So it would probably be fun to stream something where there is some sort of visual UI component to it all the time. This might be a good way to do that. What do you guys think? Anybody in chat have anything to say about that? Honestly, don't know if there's anyone here. I see one viewer, but it may not be real. I always feel like there's one viewer every time I stream. It's just one viewer count. I don't know. Can we throw this down real quick? Probably could. The hardest. I don't really see anything that would be crazy difficult. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, all this seems relatively straightforward. Like I just make these flex boxes, flex box. This kind of like an absolutely positioned div. Absolutely positioned square div. Okay. What do you say? Do you say we try this? We give this a shot? At the very least, we can set it up. It's good to get my blog updated, though, you know? Get branch, remote. Yeah, I didn't even finish the one-time pricing, did I? LS React. LS React source. I don't even, this was so long ago when I had this idea, I don't remember what I did or didn't do. There's the one-time pricing, yeah. Let's just, this one called Star Wars. Star Wars, The Last Jedi. The Stephen Freeborn. Sure. Movie card. That's what we're gonna build. And I think I'm just doing vanilla JS. What do you think? Although vanilla JS actually might take longer. Actually, I think this is vanilla JS, but it has a very like component thing to it because it uses. I set all these up with vi-test. I think is what I set them up with. We need to npm install all these things. cd react npm install. I bet there's some outdated dependencies in here too. npm audit fix. Up, going to vanilla, npm install. cd view. Need to add a Blazor one, don't we? npm audit fix. Of course. Okay. I think we do vanilla, huh? cd vanilla, cd vanilla, npm run dev. Yeah, this is just like the boilerplate crowner that comes from Vite. How do I decrease this window? Control W. Oh man, this song is loud. Why is this so loud? That was really loud to me. Still sounds kind of loud to me. Okay, how do I decrease the width of this? There you go. Not that. W shift. W shift. There's gotta be a better way of doing that. W. That someone's watching me do this and is just screaming at the screen right now. Yeah. I wonder actually how they. I actually don't know how. Like, see, like beat, vanilla. Yeah, multiple pages. Yeah, since it's no longer in the main project, cannot be executed. Well, I guess I don't even want multi-page, but how do you do single beat vanilla JS routing? I don't know. That seems kind of. I don't want to implement my own router, but I guess you kind of have to. Not really set up. That seems like it should come as part of the Vite template, huh? Okay. Well, I'll set that up so that we can do this more when I stream. We can just pick one, like pick an iCodeThis, and then we'll pick a challenge, and then pick a framework or style of front end, and then try to build it. I think that would be fun to do. Any event, I think I'm gonna wrap up lunch and head back to it. If you stayed and watched, I appreciate it. If you listened to story time, appreciate that. If you watched me upgrade my blog and got something from that, maybe you can use that. Maybe that inspires you to upgrade one of your projects, or even inspires you to take the bite on .NET because you see that it's an easy framework to work with. Anywho, hope you guys are having a good Tuesday. I will talk to you guys tomorrow or whenever we see each other next. See y'all.